Hello everyone, this is Casey from Haggard Mountain Homestead. This is our current vegetable garden. As you can see, there's a lot of weeds here. Today, we're going to take you with us while we weed and mulch our garden and talk about why it's so important to do both. Believe it or not, I actually just weeded this entire garden about a week ago, and this is how it looks already. It can be pretty discouraging. Mulching your garden has a lot of benefits. Here's a side-by-side comparison where you can see just how much it slows weed growth. Not only that, it also helps to regulate the temperature of your soil and prevents evaporation, keeping moisture in your soil longer. The first thing you're going to want to do is prep your garden. I like to go from big open areas first and then work around the individual plants. Here I'm using the Skidger Extreme Weeder, and it is a type of scuffle hoe. It is sharp on the outside and the inside, and all you need to do is move it back and forth in the dirt, and it actually cuts the plant at the root. I have no affiliation with them, but this is my favorite weeding tool. Not only does it save me a lot of time, but it's also very easy. And while it might not be as effective in the long run because you're not pulling out the entire root, it does save me so much time that it definitely makes it worth it for me. This area is also going to be completely covered with a thick layer of mulch as soon as we're done with this, so I'm not as concerned with weeds growing back up in this area. Now that we have the large areas taken care of, we're going to work around our individual plants. Here I have a marigold and a tomato that we're weeding around. In these areas specifically, you want to make sure that you get the weed out root and all. When you're mulching, you want to make sure that you don't have mulch directly against the base of your plant because that can lead to rot on your plant. So you want to leave a little ring around it, and we want to make sure we get all the weeds out in that area so they don't come back. Now let's talk about what to do with the weeds once you've pulled them out of the ground. If you have a compost pile going, you can put these in with your other compost, but we are not very good at keeping hot compost going, so I like to just leave them right in the walkways. Once the plant's pulled out of the ground, it's just going to start to die and decompose right there. And we're going to be putting mulch in this area anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Now there's several different options that you can use for your mulch. If you're going the organic route, you can use grass clippings, hay, straw, wood chips, even dead leaves. There's definitely pros and cons to each one, and you need to think about what's best for you and your garden before choosing what type of mulch you're going to use. Some of the cons of using a straw, hay, or grass clippings is that there can be other types of seeds in there which can actually contribute to the weeds in your garden, so we like to use wood chips. They seem to work the best for us because all of those benefits we talked about earlier, wood chips tend to be the best at all of that, and they take a longer time to break down, so they're in our garden longer. One of my favorite things about using these wood chips is that they were completely free. Last year, we put our information out on Chip Drop and sat patiently and waited for an arborist to contact us. After we got our first chip drop, the arborists themselves actually gave us their information and said, next time you want wood chips, contact us personally and we'll be right out. And if you don't have Chip Drop in your area, you can also just contact some local arborists and see if they would be willing to bring you some. Once you've settled on a type of mulch, there's a couple different ways to get it into your garden. As you can see, we have this very nice little cart that hooks up onto our lawnmower, and this is by far the easiest way to move a large quantity, but it doesn't get into tight spaces very well. The next best way is going to be a good old wheelbarrow. This will carry large quantities of mulch, and you can dump it where you need, or use a shovel to place it in more specific areas, or around individual plants and in tight spaces. This last way is not going to be the quickest, but if you have trouble lifting heavy objects or you don't have a wheelbarrow or a cart, this way might be best for you. All you need is a 5-gallon bucket, and you can just push the mulch into it and carry it where you need it. Then just sprinkle a nice thick layer over those weeds we pulled earlier, and remember when you're putting your mulch down to leave a little ring around the base of all your plants to prevent rot. So how thick exactly should you lay your mulch down? That question kind of depends on how much mulch you have, how much mulching you have to do, and what benefits you want to get from that mulch. Any mulch is going to be better than no mulch, but the thicker, the better. If you have enough mulch to put down a couple inches, you're going to get the most benefit from that. The absolute ideal would be around 2 to 3 inches around plants and then 3 to 4 inches in walkways. Now, the only con that I've found to wood chips is that because they take a long time to decompose, if you add them directly back to the soil, they are very high in carbon, and as they break down, they cause something called nitrogen immobilization. Essentially, it can cause nutrient deficiencies in your plants. So keep that in mind when you're prepping your garden. If the wood chips are not fully broken down, you might want to move them off before you rototill, if you even till your garden at all. Now, once the weeds do start to grow back in, because yes, mulch will not get rid of all of your weeds, they at least should be a little bit easier to pull and definitely not as overwhelming. And now your plants won't have to compete with all those weeds for nutrients and water. This is what our garden looks like 2 weeks later. The plants are happy, my back is happy, the only thing not happy is the weeds, and I'm okay with that.